Hey Matt, how are you doing?
Oh well, how about yourself?
Pretty good. It's nice that it's starting to warm up, starting to feel more like a person again. I feel like every winter I become a gremlin and then I revert. I think when the spring happens.
Yeah, I never really believed that like the seasonal affective stuff is gonna actually happen. And then like January 15th or whatever, I'm like, dang, I really needed to get warm and sunny.
Yeah.
And so yeah, today was a beautiful day.
Yeah. Hey Valen, hey Robert.
Hello.
Good evening. Good evening.
Hi.
How's everyone doing today?
Fine, and you?
I'm great. Thank you.
Okay. Um,
For my background.
oh, he sent Brian that. Valen, I just sent Brian my link to see if he can just hop in that way.
Okay. I think, and I'll put a note, I'll make a note for myself. I think it might be helpful because Benita sends them, she usually sends the link for the meeting soon after. Like she'll send the one for March
Yeah.
tomorrow, which is great. But I know for a lot of people, like you got to go back and dig. So I may just start putting well, I don't know. Is it a personalized link? I think it's a personalized link.
I think it's personalized. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I may just make a note of like, reminders, check your email for February 28th, for
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah. I think that sounds like a good plan, Valen. Hello, everyone. Give ourselves a few more minutes for people to get here and get set up. And Maggie, is Reginald going to be able to join us?
Yes, good evening. I believe he will.
Perfect. Okay. If you
We
can,
also have Mr. Anthony Snell here as well joining us from DHA.
yes. Perfect. We'll just give people a few minutes to get on, make sure we have quorum, starting in the next 3 to 4 minutes. Hi, everyone. Good evening. We're just giving people a couple of minutes to get on. We'll be starting in the next 3 to 4 minutes. I think that's Brian. Okay. Brian, if that is you that just joined, you might just want to change your name so we don't get confused. Glad you could get on. give folks just a couple more minutes to join and get started very shortly. Okay, I'm showing 6:05, so, and we do have quorum, so we can go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the February meeting of the Citizens Advisory Committee. Thank you all for your time and for being here. I'd like to officially call this meeting to order. And I will have Valen do our roll call.
Thanks, Leah. When I call your name, please say here are present. Leah Eford Green,
Here.
Robert Brown,
Here.
Valen is present, that's me. Ahmed is excused this evening. Alicia Curry. Here. Amy Jones.
Here.
Ann Rebeck. Brian Langloss.
Here.
Matthew Montine.
Here.
Rashaki Furness.
Rashaki, you're muted.
Okay, I was just about to say I'm using two screens, but I remember seeing her come on. So I was waiting, but she's here.
Present. Sorry.
Okay, it's okay. Richard LeBennett. Seth Candle. And Sherrod is excused tonight. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, and there's Anne just coming on, Valen.
Okay, thanks.
Wonderful. Thanks, everyone. And if folks file in later, this is just a PSA. Valen and I do keep an eye on the participant list. So if you are ever a few minutes late or need to leave a few minutes early, that's fine. If you miss roll call, we'll still count you present. But yeah, just a PSA for that. And now it's time to approve our minutes. Did everyone get the chance to review the minutes? Are there any changes or additions that need to be made? Okay, hearing none, I will have a motion to approve the minutes for January 2024.
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Brian.
A second.
Thanks, Rashaki.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, everyone. Anthony Snell is here from the Durham Housing Authority, who's going to give us kind of an update presentation on their efforts. Anthony, thanks so much for being here as always. We're really looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much. Maggie, I'm not sure. Are you going to pull up the presentation? Is that what we're going to do?
Yeah, if that
Okay.
works for you, I'll get that pulled up now.
Okay. As Maggie's pulling up my presentation for this evening, it's great to see everyone. I hope I can shed some light on some of the things that we are working on over at DHA. Some of this you may have seen before, so some of it is just an update. But I was drafted this evening to come before you to share some updated information regarding our activities there at the Housing Authority. Next slide, please. So quickly, I would just want to walk through maybe 4 primary areas with you to talk about. You all probably are well aware, a reference to the DHA Downtown Neighborhood Plan, or sometime referred to as Durham Downtown Neighborhood Plan. It all depends on whom you're speaking with. And then also talk to you about the progress we are making on our Choice Neighborhood Initiative. Talk about what we consider to be DDMP 2, which consists of Forest Hill Heights and Fayette Place. And then talk about our other projects, talking about some of the upcoming plans that we have in place for McDougal Terrace, as well as to share some information with you regarding some of the renovations that we are making in our public housing portfolio. So move forward. Okay. First, just this particular slide you probably have seen numerous times, but the good news about this particular slide, you can see at J.J. Henderson, we can actually start filling this in. It's almost like a coloring book or cut and paste. I like to think of it as we are completing our projects. We will be in a position to actually, you will see the actual renderings or the actual project itself. But this is part of the DDMP, which consisted of 7 sites. Multiple other sites are controlled by Durham Housing Authority. Some of the sites are controlled by the city, and then the sites are controlled by the county. J.J. Henderson and the Joyce, that has been completed. That consisted of a rehabilitation of the 177 units at J.J. Henderson. One of your members played a critical role in us getting that project done, Ms. Curry, when she was along with the staff at the Housing Authority. She took the initiative on this project moving along, and I was able to come in and join her as we were at the point of closing it. And then the actual construction on that site also of the Joyce, which is an 80 new senior units, which was built on that site. Those have been completed. And as we go around the slide here, Forest Hill Heights, that we finally got our master development agreement in place with our developer. So we are now moving forward with the plans for that site. Southside 3 and 4, and I think there's a 4 to this also. I know this project is sponsored by the city, but I do know that the developer is planning to move forward with that because we are actually issuing the tax exempt bonds for that site. Fayette Place also is in the planning stages. We have completed and have come to terms on the master development agreement for that site. I will share with you some of the preliminary renderings of the site as far as our development process, where we are thus far this evening. 519 in Liberty, that's our CNI site. There are multiple phases of this is underway right now. We have undertaken the demolition on parts of Liberty for the construction of the first phase on this site, which is what we consider as a non-CNI phase, but is also part of the overall development. And that's for Elizabeth Street Apartments. And then we've, at this point, just about all of the Liberty Street, the old Liberty Street apartments have been demolished. I mistakenly said that the new project is Liberty Street, but it's actually called Elizabeth Street Apartments. The other thing, we have relocated just about all of the residents from this site. I think there's about 39 residents remaining on site. So we are planning to have the remainder of those residents move by midsummer. And then so we will proceed with the demolition and the construction of the various phases on that site. This Hunt Street Station, this is a city initiated project. Next slide, please. just to spend a few minutes here talking about the CNI site. If you look at I would say, I guess, the upper right-hand corner there, which is the northern section of the property where it says 1, that is actually the Elizabeth Street apartments that are under construction. If you look at 2 and 3, this is the Commerce Street, which we have demolished the Liberty apartments to commence that construction. 4 is all of what we could consider is Dillard Street, and it's actually structured a little bit differently, but we are about to commence the development of those sites too. We are going to proceed with the demolition of the old Liberty apartments that set in that footprint, so we can move forward with the development of that phase, which is Dillard Street, and that consists of about 150 units. And the last phase is what we call the Main Street phase, which is number 5 on the site, will be the last phase. Where 4 and 5 probably set is, well, really, I guess about the middle of the property. We were talking about where 519, the old 519 apartments or Odom exist at this point. Next slide, please. So this is just a quick update on where we are. I mentioned the Elizabeth Street apartments. We closed this transaction Q1 of 2023. It's under construction, 72 units. The slide there to the bottom on the, I guess we'll say the right there, where you see the conduits out of the ground there, that's for the electrical and the plumbing conduits. So with that in place, we should be setting the frames for the foundation. Pouring the foundation should be completed by mid-March, so we can then start the vertical construction or the framing of the building. We have been beset by some site conditions that were unexpected. I would say they're par for the course when you're doing new construction, and especially when you're trying to connect new infrastructure to old infrastructure. Sometimes you run into connection problems, but we have been able to work through those issues, and we are running probably about 2 months behind, but we are hoping that we can pick up some of that time once we start the framing for the site. Next slide, please. This is the Commerce Street, which consists of 2 phases. As a family and a seniors phase. If you can see the photos there to the bottom, the one on the bottom left is actually the old Liberty apartments, which townhome apartments, which have been destroyed. And the one in the middle is the community center, which has been demolished. And this is at the completion of the demolition of the site. You can see basically from the southern portion of the site all the way to the northern portion. And kind of in the background there, you can see the elevator shafts that are that I showed in the previous photograph, but this is from the southern end of the property looking north. Next slide, please. And so the other area in which we've been, as part of our development activities that we have been able to pursue, and this is all has been a part of the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program, or the RAD. You probably have heard us make these references in the past. That is the primary tool in which we are utilizing as part of the repositioning or the redevelopment of our assets. And this tool allows for us to transfer the subsidy from our public housing to these new sites as part of the RAD transactions. We have undertaken this tool for Willard Street. We actually transferred some units from Liberty to Willard as part of the redevelopment of Liberty, and that took place as part of the what is now referred to as Elizabeth Street Apartments. We transfer units there. That was completed in 2021. We also transferred some units through the TOA to the Joyce, and we are also transferring some TOAs to 300 East Main Street. And the reason this has been a great tool for us, I mean, as you look at these projects are not necessarily sponsored by DHA, with the exception of the Joyce, which we sponsored along with our private developer, at 300 East Main, which is a county-sponsored project, and Willard Street. I think this was a project, and at Willard, it was a city-sponsored project. We've been able to transfer assistance or through working with our developers, create opportunities for our residents to live at these new developments without us making a direct capital investment beyond using the vouchers themselves as part of the transfer. So the subsidy is going to these new units as part of the leverage to sustain them. But as a part of that, residents that are being transferred, that are in an occupied unit, they have the right to follow their assistance to these new developments. So it's been a wonderful leverage tool for us, where we haven't had to make the full-fledged investment and to create an opportunity for our residents to get access to these new living environments. Next slide, please. So the other one, which we are undertaking also, is what we call 500 East Main, where we are actually going to be transferring 53 units from McDougal Terrace to this site. Again, this is an opportunity for us to transfer unoccupied and occupied units as well to a particular site, and creating opportunities for our residents to have access to these new residences without us making the major investment where we are doing gap funding or something of that nature. But the subsidy is significant as part of supporting these projects, but it creates that opportunity for us. Next slide. Just talk a little bit about what we have titled as DDMP Phase 2, which consists of Fayette Place, Forest Hill Heights, and the DHA office in the County Criminal Justice Center. I mentioned earlier we had completed our master development negotiations for both Fayette Place and Forest Hill Heights. And with that, we have proceeded into the actual development for these sites at this particular point. The DHA office site, we are evaluating our development options for that site, and we were planning probably sometime, maybe within the next year or so, make some decisions about the actual development schedule for that particular site. Next slide.
I'm sorry, all. Did the slides just come down? Okay,
Yeah.
I apologize. I just had a technical difficulty.
While Maggie is getting us back, any questions?
Sounds like a lot of progress is being made.
Yes, I have one question. When the 53 units are, I guess, people from McDougal that are moved over to Main Street, what then happens to those units in McDougal? Are they just not reoccupied, or what happens there?
Well, we are talking with HUD about options for those units on an interim basis, because as I will share with you later, we do have a plan in place that we want to proceed with the actual repositioning of McDougal Terrace. So eventually we will get to a point where we transfer that subsidy and individuals follow subsidy, we will redevelop McDougal Terrace, but that is off some, there's a couple of years before we get to that. So we are actually going to talk with HUD to see if we can use those units on the interim basis for other housing purposes.
I know Mr. Scott's already given us a presentation on that, on how that looks in the future, but I guess if they're gonna be vacated, why would we then go back and put people in there knowing that that is a high crime area? We just had a recent incident on television with the shootout last week over there. So I wondered if, there's some idea about just, moving people out until, I guess 2 or 3 years in the plan is really put into place to re-envision that site. But for now, what thought process goes into putting people back over there when we're seeing, they need to be moved out. You see all of the, and I'll use the word drama with that property. Is there any thought about keeping people away, not putting people back on the site? That's the last question I have.
Well, Mr. Brown, one of the unfortunate things is there is a tremendous demand for housing, right? And so part of it is to create, opportunities for individuals that need housing. So, that's the tug that we have all the time with, sometimes we are able to move forward with maybe the immediate demolition of say if we take down a building, and our strategy has been to be in a position where when we're doing these types of strategies to take down entire buildings, so if we are in a position to demolish them, we can. But if we are not going to immediately demolish it, we usually get into a situation where we have to board it up and secure the building. And given not just at McDougal Terrace, but across our portfolio, the issues you run into when units are vacant, that you get squatters and things of that nature that come into the units, or someone comes in and they start vandalizing the units, looking for copper and things of that nature. So, to the degree that we can, we are transferring some individuals from there. Yeah, we realize that safety is a matter at all of our sites. And we are trying to combat that as much as we can, but we still have to look at the overall need for housing across the community. And if we can somehow meet that gap, although it may be on an interim basis, we would like to do that.
I'm specific, and I appreciate your answer. I'm just specifically talking about McDougal Terrace, not other sites. And I guess if let's just be honest, the place is in need of repair. It's just not, I don't know I guess the answer, the last part of this question is, if you're going to move people out, are you planning to spend money to repair the units that are vacated to move people back in, or are they going to stay vacant?
Well, we have an ongoing capital program for our public housing portfolio, in which I'll share a little bit of information with you about later on in this presentation, which we are required, as long as we have residents at a particular property, we are required to make sure that that particular resident is decent and safe. So thus, we have to continue to make investments in that property up until the point that we decide the strategy to abandon that property. And so my statement about what are we going to do with those units once, and so we're not just doing TOAs from McDougal. We're looking at Oxford Manor. We're looking at some of our other sites where we're going to be doing TOAs. So our overall strategy is to talk to HUD about how we can use those units once we move the public housing residents off there, if that can be worked out. Because we do still have situations where we, again, have individuals that need housing.
I understand. Thank you.
Let me jump in just a minute. Y'all have to excuse me. I'm overcoming the illness. But I think, Mr. Snell, what Mr. Brown is getting at is what is there an overall vision for McDougal Terrace? And I'm trying to asking a leading question because I don't want to get ahead of you. in your work, but that's essentially what he's asking.
Well, I'm going to cover that a little later in the presentation. I'll share with you where we are as far as some of the future development options that we have on the table for McDougald Terrace. And at this particular point, we have received approval from HUD to proceed with the redevelopment plan for McDougald Terrace. Now, I'll tell you that we are at, I don't want to say ground zero, but we are very early in that process, and that is not going to happen, you know, in the next 24 months. It's going to take a while before we get this plan implemented.
Thank you, Mr. Snow. Is there anyone else who has questions before we move on to the latter part of his presentation?
So I mentioned to you earlier about the fact that we are moving forward with Fayette Place and Forest Hill Heights. And so just quickly, I just want to share with you some of the conceptual planning schematics that we are evaluating at this particular moment for these sites. Fayette Place overall, when we're looking at the new development plan for it, and it encompasses about 565 units, and that includes about 43 home ownership or townhome opportunities that we are going to, that's being proposed to be built on the site. It also includes in commercial and retail development. What I'm sharing with you here on the screen is just to give you some idea of how we are actually testing the site right now for where we are actually testing the site for the location of the units, the community center, in reference to how we have laid the site out, and also what we are trying to address are meeting some requirements with the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency with respect to 9% transactions and 4% low-income housing transactions. As part of that process, getting approval from North Carolina Housing Finance Agency, there are certain requirements that you have to meet as far as how far the project has to be away from 147, you know, those types of things against a 9%. And we had to relocate some of the buildings to accommodate where we were going to put the 9% transaction. But overall, it's just I wanted to just show this to illustrate some of the progress that is being made with the site. Here in the red border on this here is just the broader site for the 4% transaction, which right now, the way we have it laid out is 192 multifamily units. And then that's 1B and 1C. If you see within the red lines, if you can see the little blue border there, that is the 9%, the location of the 9%. In the corner, the community center will go right here. It's at the corner of Olmsted and Merrick. It's about a 4,000 square foot proposed building to go there. These are the things that we are evaluating. Actually, as part of the initial phase, we'll be laying out all of the interior streets. You see the little roundabout there. That is potentially going to be a name placer within the community, looking at maybe doing some type of significant artwork there or something of the nature to signify the Hayti community. So, but just to share with you some of the iterations and the work that we have underway right now as we are going through the planning process. Now, what you see I don't want you to think that it's absolutely etched in stone, because these things are changing as we look at our financing option, as we get feedback from North Carolina Housing Finance Agency. But this is just to show you, give you some idea of how it's being placed. The white section there that's colored in, this is where the townhomes, where one portion of the townhomes will go. And then one of the other things I just want to point out as part of the planning, if Maggie, can you increase the size of this a little bit? Go up. I know it's hard. And go down right there. You will see different numbers on it, and that's the projected number of units in the building. If you look down here at Olmsted, on the southern portion, I would call that, you see the buildings are basically the smaller buildings. And the reason we are doing that is to, when you are looking at how the buildings would tie into the surrounding community, right? Not to have these big buildings right there up against the community, and they don't really tie into the current architectural structure. And then where we have the townhomes, there's a lot of single family residential on that portion of the property. Again, just to, and these were things that came up as part of our community engagements, where the residents were expressing about the structures, what size they should be, and how they should tie in with the community. And so we are trying to hold to those themes and to those interests of the community as we proceed with the actual development of the site. Next slide.
Mr. Snell, one quick question that's in the chat from Amy. Are discussions for a new grocery store still progressing? And Amy, if you want to elaborate on that, feel free.
That is still on the table. There have been some discussions early on as part of this, and we're working with our developers to revisit about that. This is still a when you start to look at the site, it's somewhat limited, but it's still an option in which we are trying to evaluate. We still have the commercial residential space to actually be planned out. That hasn't been completed. There are also, we like to look at, there are some surrounding sites that are of interest as we go forward, that will maybe some options for the development of the grocery store. We know that it's a food desert there, and it's about, part of it is, you know, creating additional rooftops to generate that interest of a grocer to locate there. But we're hoping that we can at least reignite the interest that was shown early on and see if we can make that happen. In this particular slide, I just wanted to show you, this one is really the slide to, if you can increase it. Yeah, so that's right here. So again, this is one of the townhouse layouts that we were looking at here. At this particular, when we originally laid out the site, I think we had about 25 townhomes there, and we were trying to see how they would fit in there. And if you take a look at this initial layout, you see in the back of it, it looks like a lot of green space there. And so what we did in the most updated version of this was take a look at the layout where we could actually reposition some of the townhouses, use some of that green space as part of the layout, and actually increase the number of units that we were talking about putting in the space. Maggie, if you go over to, I guess, to your left there. And you can, yeah, if you go down. And so you can see how we've tried to reconfigure the layout there to create additional units. Actually, you know, in our discussions, these units, the way they're laid out, the ones that are closest to the street, they have an interest on, it looks like it's on the back, on the interest is from the interior. We're talking about making the entrance from the street. So it, again, trying to achieve that access from the street rather than entering into the residence from the interior of the property. So those are the types of things that we are exploring. We are looking at some of these will have garages. We're evaluating whether we could actually convert that garage on some of them to include an option where there's an apartment on that first floor that homeowner that homeowner will be able to rent, right? And we see that as an opportunity to increase mixed income and also intergenerational housing. Imagine if you had a senior on the first floor, that senior may not have the same schedule as the homeowner, could be there in the evenings, you know, providing that additional eye on the property, whether they're on vacation or they're at home during the day, that type of thing. But we are exploring that idea, looking at some of the units and doing some of them as a 3-story versus a 2-story with a garage. Again, just trying to be as creative as we can, and also, but these units are going to be affordable. We are looking at all the mechanisms so we can keep the units affordable for at least 80% AMI. Next slide, please. Yes, here just to share a little bit of information about Forest Hill Heights. As you may know, Forest Hill Heights, as it exists now, is only 55 units on the site. We are talking about a redevelopment that will have that number north of about 700 units on site. The first block to be built is actually B2, which is going to be an all seniors, which is about 120 units or seniors that are going in there. That's going to be the replacement for the current units that are on site. In addition to, we have some what we call Choice Neighborhood Initiative units coming over from the CNI site, about somewhere less than 62 units. We haven't defined the exact number, but there will be some of those units coming over to the site. We are with respect to this site, we are a little further ahead than where we are with Fayette Place. We have actually put in our 4% low-income housing tax credit application for the first phase here. Hoping to have that by the end of the year and be in a position where we can commence construction on this site probably early 2025, which means that the current residents will be relocated off of this site by the end of this year. And so this is a mixed income, mixed use development. Next slide, please. Now I want to talk a little bit about what we consider. I know everybody's been focused on all of the new things that we are doing and talking about the DDMP. Want to step outside of the DDMP just a little bit, talk about McDougal Terrace, and then talk about some of the renovations that we are making at as part of our existing public housing stuff. Next slide. So this is the repositioning plan that we submitted to HUD well over a year ago. And we finally, I would say about 2 months ago, we receive approval from HUD so we can proceed with the redevelopment of the site. If I'm correct, there's somewhere about 360 units at McDougal Terrace. The whole redevelopment will be somewhere about 644 units. This includes the redevelopment of a property that's adjacent to McDougal Terrace, known as Lincoln Apartments, which we own. Because we are going to have a build first strategy, we're anticipating that we will redevelop this site, which is a vacant, dilapidated site, will be our first phase of development. And once that's completed, I'll get to the question here. It just popped up. Once that is completed, what we will do is actually relocate residents to that new section. So if you're the north part, I'm going to say the north part of this slide is where the 75th DHA is, and the southern portion. So basically, we would in Lincoln Apartments on the southern part of the slide, we would build first there, and then we are taking units from that on the southern side of Lawson there, and actually relocating those residents into that new section and basically moving north. When I talked about those TOAs that were going to 500, they are also located in the empty units that are part of the southern part of this property that we are taking those TOAs for. Again, creating those where we are taking down entire buildings, they're empty. If we have no immediate purpose for them and we are not going to use them, they will be part of a demolition strategy. So buildings vacant, we like to take them down if they're not going to be used for anything else immediately, and then we'll just proceed with the development. So one of the interesting aspects of this development that it involves Durham Public Schools. There are 2 middle schools in the area, which DPS is looking at the possibility of consolidating and moving the school onto the what is now the McDougal Terrace, or be part of the McDougal Terrace redevelopment. If you look at that, I would say that I'm going to, for like the blue section there, right in there is where the school will be potentially located. The sites that they are abandoning for the relocations of the school, we will use those sites for additional housing development. And so again, this is going to be a mixed use, mixed income development. I guess the interesting, again, the big new aspect is also building this new school there. So it's really a what they call a purpose-driven community, with the school centered in the middle. Well, not necessarily in the middle, but in a big important intersection of the site, and with the other forms of development. So as far as the housing is concerned, it's going to be some what we call high density, maybe 3 or 4 stories. There are going to be some townhomes as part of this development process also. So there will be different there will be different types of housing here. It won't be all just 3 and 4 story apartments here. So this is where we are with respect to this plan. Again, we are in the early stages of this plan. The thing that we have at this point is that we have the approval from HUD. We know that DPS is interested in further evaluations of this opportunity. So there's a lot of work to be done before we are actually at that point where we are turning dirt at the site. Next slide, please. Here, I just want to share with you some pictures of some of the improvements that we have been making at our public housing sites. I will say to you, and we have done, what we do is we do these physical need assessments of our properties. And when we look at our public housing portfolio, I think the number is somewhere about $54 million of capital improvements that are needed at the site. We receive funding from HUD, which we call our capital funds, that we receive somewhere about $3 million a year. If we look at that plus some funds that we have about 20 million. That falls far short of the $53 million worth of needs that we need at these sites, that exist at these sites. I will tell you, we have been very fortunate in the last, probably the last 3 to 4 months, where we have secured additional funding from HUD, where we actually applied for some competitive grants. We received an additional $9 million for HUD so that we can focus on their improvements. One of the more recent ones that we received was $3 million dedicated to the Cornwallis community. So this is a big help to us in our efforts to move forward with the improvements at the site. As you can see, in the middle there, this is the former color of the apartment here. We have gone to a different color scheme, trying to, I guess improve the feng shui of the living environment here, giving it more of an urban look. We have upgraded the flooring in the units and colors. This is at Cornwallis. This is the work that we've done at Cornwallis. As part of the package or the grant that we have, we will be putting all new appliance packages in these units. Plus, there are a number replacing, air conditioning and heating units. There are a number of other electrical upgrades that we are making to the site. And with some of the other capital funds, we're replacing the playground equipment out there. There's erosion control efforts underway. So that's just some of the work that's being done at Cornwallis. As we go to the bottom from left to right over to the blue doors, this is the new shower surrounds that we are putting in at Hoover Road. We are actually reglazing the bathtubs. We are also painting all of the painting the bathrooms. There's I think it's about 54 units there at Hoover Road. So we are upgrading all of the bathrooms there. Where it says Unit 13, that's also the improvements that have been made in some of the units. We've put new cabinets in the kitchens there. That's at Hoover Road. Throughout our portfolio, we are replacing interior doors. This is actually a photo from Club Boulevard, where we've replaced some of the interior doors. We're replacing, again, interior doors at McDougal, as well as we're doing other work at those sites. The two middle photos there are at Hoover Road. We're putting in new windows. You can see we've put in new doors, tried to, again, change the color, trying to change the personality of the communities a little bit, put on new, we call them safety doors or storm doors also have been installed. And then the last photograph there to the right, the color is the color in which in the doors we have installed at, this is actually at Hoover Road also. Again, this is just to give you a glimpse of some of the renovations that are taking place across our portfolio. Even though early on in my presentation, we talked about all of the new development that is going on, these renovations are equally as important to us because and probably more important, because we have residents there and we are obligated to ensure that we are providing safe, decent housing for these individuals. And so we are moving forward very aggressively with our programs at this point. We have actually 3 programs that are running right now. We have 2 of them underway. The first one is almost finished, and the third one we just started a couple of weeks ago. So we've been getting out our programs that way, and that's just the way. And I would call programs as the different. We bidded out 3 different programs, and we're on the 3rd one now. So we're moving forward so we can get current with our current year. So we are aggressively moving forward with that. That's all I have right now. I'll stop. There were a couple of questions that came up in the chat, and I'll try to answer them. And I guess before I go to the chat, are there any questions from anyone?
I think
Okay.
we're good, Mr. Snell, to go to Anne and then Rashaki's question in the chat.
Okay. See, street entrance. I addressed the question about the grocery store. Is there a reason the empty buildings on the McDougal site are still standing? Yeah, there are some buildings that there are a couple buildings on that site that we need to move to demolition on. We just have not. A lot of it has to do with funding to proceed with demolition. So we haven't demolished those, but that is certainly something that's on our mind on a daily basis about those buildings, because you have to secure them. And that's always an issue, but they just have not been taken down at this particular point. Will the question, will any of the housing be gated? I don't know the answer to that at this particular point. That hasn't come up as an option, but we are in the very early stages of actually designing what the final plans will be for those sites. I mean, certainly that's always an issue as you're looking at security. There may be some type of perimeter gating around that, and the question is, how can you do that and make it effective?
Right, and Rashaki.
Did I miss anything else?
I don't think so. I just want to make sure that Anne or Rashaki, you guys are good with, you don't have follow-ups or anything like that.
No, thank you for answering my question. I just definitely wanted to make sure it was noted that, maybe that's a consideration. I don't want to alleviate all crime, but it could be a helpful participant in decreasing some of it.
As part of our process of the whole design process, we do undertake the steps to look at how the site could be secured, and there's a safety review as part of the design. So we try to take all of those issues into consideration.
Thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Snell.
So in that consideration, I mean, does not the crime in the area have anything to do with that? I go back to McDougal Terrace again because I'm just trying to figure out why we are just doing so much in other places, and that place is has one of the most highest crime rates in the city, and we're just, it doesn't sound like it's a priority. We're talking about 2 years out. I'm trying to understand the logic behind that. And I get Mr. Scott gave a great presentation on issues with HUD, but there has to be some sort of concern, because it's just a high crime area. The place has been over there for 60 plus years, and very little has been done. Not knocking anything for the housing authority or anything you all are doing, that you all are trying to do. But today, I mean, it's just drive by there, just take a look over and ride around Durham and look at the other, the other projects that are getting a lot of attention. And right back over there and look at that again. There's nothing, you fixed, the roads have been fixed, that's all. So that's all I have to say. I'm just a tad bit frustrated about McDougal Terrace. So it makes no sense to me. I hear what's going on, but there has to be some urgency behind getting over there and just trying to make life better for the people in that community, in that area, that part of town.
So, Mr. Brown, I can't, that's always a tough one, right? I can only say that, yes, we know the urgency of pursuing some repositioning, redevelopment strategies for that site. We have proceeded with a plan which we're excited with, but that is also why we are also pursuing the transfer of assistance opportunities for that site. We have created between 500 and 500 Main Street, and for now 300 Main Street. That's about 70 units. That's an opportunity for 70 families that will have priority from McDougal Terrace for those new units. Now, not everyone is going to want to relocate downtown or away from that community, but we understand the urgency, and that's why we are trying to create that option for those families as an immediate. It won't be immediate because it takes 18 months for a new site to be developed, but versus sitting there waiting for us to get all of the funding in place and actually redeveloping that site, we are moving forward with creating some opportunities. Now, it doesn't address everything, but it does address provide some opportunities.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Snell. I also want to just recognize that a lot of these plans take a lot of years to happen, right? Like that these new developments are, something that you guys planned probably 5-6+ years ago, and they're just now happening. And that's the same thing with McDougal. I think that that's part of it too, is we get to hear these wonderful presentations and we get a very abbreviated version of the timeline, right? And of course, DHA can't unfortunately solve kind of the systemic issues that are affecting McDougal and affecting other places in Durham.
Right.
But
I hear that, but I have history in listening to this for about 62 years. So that's my perspective is a little different.
Sure.
All right. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Understood.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Snell. We so appreciate it. Are there any other questions before we let him get on with his evening? Great. Thank you again. And Maggie already has your presentation. We'll include that in our minutes so that people have it for reference. And thank you again. We always so appreciate having DHA come. We know you have a bunch of other folks that you report to, and so we appreciate you taking this extra time to talk to us.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank you, Mr. Snell.
Thank you.
So Maggie, I seemed like Reginald needed to hop off. Do we want to move into conflict of interest in the bylaws amendment?
So we can, Reginald, I believe, is going to be not rejoining the meeting. He, as he said, has been overcoming an illness. So I will cover down on the portions that his name is listed. So if you're okay, I'll jump into.
Go for it. Yeah,
Okay.
if you feel, yeah, absolutely. Take it away.
Okay, perfect. So I know last month Reginald spoke about our efforts to continue to fill staff vacancies within the Community Development Department. We are making some progress and headway. Yesterday, our administrative coordinator, Mr. Marshall Troublefield, he began his position. So he is working with us now. We're excited to have him on the team, and he'll be working very closely with Reginald. And then regarding our assistant director, we anticipate someone will be starting in that position March 25th. So more to come there once that person is fully situated and has arrived and onboarded, we will be sure to bring them to the committee to introduce them to everyone. And then we also have some other positions posted. Currently, my team has 3 vacancies. So 2 of my 3 positions are posted and advertised on the City of Durham's website. And so that's where we are with staff vacancies. Also this Friday, we are continuing as the city to move through the FY25 budget process. And Reginald will be giving a presentation during this Friday's city council retreat regarding a bond referendum. So that is something I don't know the time yet. He doesn't quite know the time yet. He will be giving that presentation, but that will be occurring this Friday, and I do believe it's all recorded. I'm going to talk about the annual action plan process here shortly, but we're continuing to work through that process. The draft of the annual action plan itself is almost complete. We will have that released for public comment mid-March in advance of the April 15th City Council meeting, which will be the second public hearing and also the time where hopefully our City Council will adopt that plan. And so when we do distribute that plan for that 30-day public comment period, that public notice advertisement, I'll make sure goes out to the entire committee, along with the final draft copy of that plan. And then lastly, for the down payment assistance program, we provided some updates last month, but we work to try to help better market the program. And we have developed, in collaboration with our communications department, a commercial. It was released last week. It went out on City of Durham's social media outlets. It'll also be advertised on local television. I'm not sure specifically of the stations, but I can get back to everyone with that information. But we are making efforts to try and better market that program to eligible residents. And so those are the couple of updates I have to share. If there are any questions. Okay. Well, then I'm going to move into, I think I have the next 2 items. Just a gentle reminder about conflict of interest forms. I have received a couple back to date. The form version that I sent out is a Word document. Hopefully it's editable for folks, and you can literally just type your name and type in the date. There's no wet signature. You don't have to print it and wet sign it and scan it back. All I need you to do is just type in your name at the bottom of that form with the date and send it back to me via email.
Yeah, super easy, folks. It's a 1-pager. Valen did include it on the email reminder for this meeting. So if you haven't gotten the chance to fill that out yet, it's on that email, and you can just send it to Maggie directly. Yeah, thanks, folks. We got to do it every year. I don't think any of us have any conflicts, but we need to have all that paperwork in.
Yes, please. Thank you, Leah. And we just record those until next year, and the email directly to me will also serve as supporting documentation for your signature, since it is just a type into a Word document form. Okay, and then the last item.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Rashaki.
Just asking your last statement. So are you saying that a response via email constitutes signature? What do you?
No, so I need the actual form where you type in your name at the bottom of it. But then when you also send it to me directly via email, I save a copy of that email too.
Gotcha.
Since I'm not asking you all to wet sign it or anything of that nature.
Just makes it's Maggie covering herself, so she didn't just type in all our names on Word documents and not ask us to fill it out.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yes.
No, but good question, Rashaki. Good question.
Okay. Okay, well then I'm going to jump into the FY 2024-2025 annual action plan funding chart. So this funding chart is kind of the overview of how we are going to be allocating funding to projects by entitlement grant. And that serves as kind of the basis as to how we develop the annual action plan document itself. So that large 50, 60 page document that has a lot more information in detail, but the funding charts quite important to look at because it'll give you the synopsis. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. I'm hopeful everyone can see my screen. I'm gonna zoom out ever so slightly. Okay, and so this funding chart is broken down by funding source, which is in bold in each section of the spreadsheet. Then we have the organization that's carrying it out, what consolidated plan goal the project supports, and we have 5 consolidated plan goals in our 2020 to 2025 con plan. Then a description of the project, how much funding is being allocated, how many beneficiaries we anticipate will benefit from the project, and then when we expect it to be completed. A couple things to note about this funding chart is that it is based on estimated funding amounts. HUD has not yet released our annual allocation for each of our entitlement grants. Honestly, I don't know when they're going to release it. Generally in February, sometimes it can be as late as March or even April. And so in order to continue through the annual action planning process and to ensure we meet HUD's submission deadline of May 15th, we have to operate under these estimated entitlement amounts. So with that being said, these will be changed and increased or decreased proportionally unless there is a circumstance referenced in this yellow section of the spreadsheet. Like for example, our section 108 loan payment under our CDBG grant, that one is what it is. It won't increase or decrease if we receive more or less funding than we anticipated. But for the most part, all project funding will either increase or decrease. And then before we submit the final plan, we will make sure that all of this information is updated. And so just kind of highlighting what will occur with our emergency solutions grant. This is the smallest entitlement grant we receive, and funding will be used for homeless services, specifically rapid rehousing efforts. And know that this funding in particular, the HSAC committee, they are heavily involved in looking at how this funding is invested. Another point to note with ESG, we have to match dollar for dollar the entitlement, and so that match is reflected with the dedicated housing funds. And here's the breakdown of those allocations. And we anticipate with both these investments, we will serve 75 households. I'm going to keep moving to our HOPWA grant. So with our HOPWA grant, we foresee Department of Social Services and Central Piedmont Community Action, Inc., CPCA. They are current project sponsors for the HOPWA grant, and DSS, they administer supportive services and housing placement, short-term rent, mortgage, and utility assistance, otherwise known as STRMU. And then they also have some administration. And then the breakdown of how funding will be allocated by each of these service types is referenced here, along with the number of beneficiaries we anticipate. CPCA is our tenant-based rental assistance, or TBRA, project sponsor. They also will receive some admin, and anticipate they'll be able to assist 40 households. I will note they are a new project sponsor for us. They assume this role from DHA, and so they are making a lot of efforts to continue to move this program forward. You'll also see with each entitlement grant, there is administration that's for community development department staff to support salaries that for folks who are working within these grants, coordinating them, administering them, project managers, folks of that sort. Going to keep going. And then the last two grants we have is our community development block grant. With this grant, along with home, we have program income. So this is an estimated amount of program income that we foresee will be able to be used in support of the projects we are doing with our FY 2024-2025 investment. You'll see that we have to be determined under organizations for the affordable rental housing and home ownership project, as well as the community and economic development project. What will be happening by late spring, early summer, we will be releasing competitive RFPs to account for this project funding allocation. And so what is reflected here, some of the eligible activities, but once we release those competitive RFPs, we'll have to go through the rating and ranking process. And also we'll know at that time what our actual allocation will be. And that's how we will determine who the specific organizations will be carrying out these projects. And there will likely be, in some instances, multiple organizations that could be working with funding from each of these projects. And then we also know we have been using our public services cap to support homeless service providers with supportive services for folks in permanent supportive housing programs and those individuals who are in emergency shelter. And then we also have our Section 108 loan payment. That's an annual recurring payment. And then moving down to home, you'll also see to be determined for these three projects, affordable rental housing and home ownership. Just something to be mindful of. CDBG and home does have different eligible affordable housing type activities. So those will all be assessed and determined based on those competitive proposals we receive. Then on an annual basis, we have to allocate 15% of our home entitlement to a CHODO, and we are working as part of that competitive RFP process in late spring or early summer. We're also going to be trying to recruit some additional CHODOs. There's a whole process for an organization to receive a CHODO designation. It's very detailed, in some ways kind of cumbersome, but we are going to be rendering some technical assistance sessions and do some of that recruitment to try and get some more certified CHODO organizations. And then also, we are a consortium, which means we are working with Durham County as well to support some of their affordable housing development efforts. And so as part of our home allocation, at least 5% of our allocation has to go towards the consortium to benefit a Durham County resident or homeowner specifically. But 5% of the allocation doesn't really support the cost of a substantial rehab project. And so we do slightly increase it to accommodate market costs. And so this is what our funding looks like. As I said, though, this is subject to change based on what our actual allocations will be. The estimates are based on last year's allocation, just some nice round whole numbers. But once we receive those allocations from HUD, this will be updated.
Thank you, Maggie. That document is also in Balance email if you want to look at it more closely. Obviously, if questions about it, please feel free to email Maggie. Are there any questions right now? Feeling good? All right. I know it's getting late, so I'm trying to be mindful of folks' time. We have a couple quick things that we do need to discuss. Maggie, if you don't mind, I'm going to bump the subcommittee one up just to get that discussion going, and with a proposition of folks that we can continue this discussion via email. I know that the committee has met since we last met as a group. I know there are some various folks on, Amy, Alicia. Would anyone like to briefly say, like, did we hammer down on the webinar and the event?
Yep. And can I share a screen?
Absolutely.
I have the capability. I mean, okay. Yes. And I'm coming off of a cold as well, or some such, I don't know. And so pardon all of the throat clearing and what have you. If you can't see it, give me a thumbs down. But as just to reiterate, Community Development Week is taking place this year. It's a national thing, April 1st through 5th. That's a Monday through Friday. And really the Community Development Week, which is kind of like corresponds a bit with what, you know, the mandate of this committee is around celebrating specifically CDBG and home. And so just kind of coming off of that proposed, you know, budget allocations that Maggie just shared with us, just bear that in mind, that that's what this is about celebrating. And it is like the 50th anniversary of CDBG, I believe. And so coming out of the last the last meeting, which was the rescheduled one, and so I'm not sure that everybody was there. Even a bunch of our committee members, the subcommittee members, weren't there. The proposal, though, was just generally that there would be 2 events, one of which is an information session, something online, something that would be open to the general public, but focused on CDBG and home, current grantees, potential grantees. And so we'll come back to that in just a second. But, you know, could be advertised broadly. And it's really about showcasing opportunities to engage with the work of Community Development Department. And so, you know, Maggie, you just mentioned that there's going to be these, what was it? It was like 2 CDBGs and 3 homes that are going to be competed, that are going to be RFP'd. And so, you know, maybe that this is something that's, I don't think we knew about that, or even like knew the timing of that. And so perhaps this information session could really be focused on that. And, you know, if you're an organization who's interested in, you know, submitting an application for one of those competitive bids, you know, here's like all that you need to know type of a thing. So that would be the idea of this information session, but very specific to folks who could apply for that funding. And then the second one being a celebration, an in-person event. This would be more invitation only. And you see some of the folks, the groups of folks that are listed there, where we could celebrate success and potentially make that official proclamation that has been made in the past. So I'm going to dive just quickly into each one of these. And so there's going to be 3 buckets for each one. This is what our group is proposing. Here's some confirmation and like commitment that we need from the committee. Here's some confirmation and commitment that we need from community development department. Because if we can't get these things, it doesn't make sense for us to spin our wheels. So for that first event, the information session, which would be open to the general public, focused on the CDBG and home potential grantees. The idea would be that would be something held during the day, because these folks are probably doing this as part of their job. They're representing the organization that they work for. It also, this would be something facilitated by community development department. And so, to keep it during working hours felt like it made a lot of sense. And so we're sort of tentatively proposing the 2nd or the 4th, which would be the Tuesday, Wednesday of that week. We can send out personal invites to folks that we have contact information for, who are, kind of already in the system, so to speak. But it would also be advertised publicly for folks who have never applied for this type of funding before, aren't on your radar, but would be interested. We also were thinking that participants could submit questions in advance just to help whoever is doing the facilitation on CDBG, on community development departments, and to help them to determine, what to focus on during that presentation if it's not prepared already. So the request from this committee would be maybe some support for our subcommittee in developing this marketing materials and doing some personal outreach if needed, just making sure that the right people are hearing about the event, and that, they know that it's taking place, potentially some support with online event logistics. So, a little bit of a light ask, I would say, for the committee. However, sorry, I need to rearrange my screen because I can't see what I wrote. The pictures are in front of it. Oh, now I did that. I'm sorry. I'm messing everything up. I'm trying to see what I'm doing here. Please move this window away. Are you guys seeing this?
No, we're not seeing your other window. I think that's just you suffering.
Well, there's something that came up that says, please move this window. I'm like, I'm trying. Okay.
Oh,
yeah, it's, I don't know what's happening. So the request for this one from the community development department would be, the big one, obviously confirm that there's staff capacity to facilitate this session. Now that you went through talked about the competitive RFP process in your previous presentation, I'm wondering if this is like something you would have been doing anyways. If it's something that you do when you have, sort of these kind of bigger RFPs coming up, and it would just make a lot of sense to do it during Community Development Week. So it's something that we can kind of advertise as part of the CDBG and home celebration. And then the other thing would be to confirm y'all's ability to share some list. Like I saw, we didn't see very many names on what you just provided us there. I know like Housing for New Hope was on there, but they were on there in like an ESG capacity. And so like we just, even in looking in looking in the capers, for instance, the names aren't there of like who the actual organizations are. And so there's not a lot that we can do on our end for the outreach unless we have those names. And so just confirming that we can get access to those names so that, we can do some outreach and marketing of the event.
Amy, do you mind if I interrupt you for just a second and ask a question? So, and this is kind of a question for Maggie, but also for the committee. Do we feel it would be more appropriate for community development to make that ask than for us to make it? So like sending this out on the community development listserv, obviously inviting the committee members from other housing focused committees. So like the AHIC and the COC committee and things like that. And then obviously you guys already have that participant information. So maybe that could, Amy, not to like undercut, but I think it might feel and sound a little bit more official coming from the community development side, if that makes sense.
And I think totally agree. This was just like, otherwise we're basically proposing an event and saying, you guys do all the work.
No.
It's just a way to like, be helpful. But I
get it.
Yeah, and so just to chime in, I can say we have the capacity, whether it be myself or others within the department, but looking at the dates you proposed, those work. So we definitely have that capacity to facilitate the session. And as well, the list of previous applicants or recipients of CDBG and home funds, that can be provided too. So those organizations and respective points of contact. I do know that we are in communication with those organizations on a rather routine basis, just through other work that we're doing. So I'd be happy as well to compile that. And if maybe with the subcommittee, we could or I could share, these are the folks that we're doing this kind of outreach to, these previous recipients of these funds, and then we could share the information.
So maybe what we do on this one, Maggie, is and so when I'm saying we on the call, it's me, Alicia, and Matt, who you see, who have been part of this, and then also Ahmed, who's not on the call tonight. But so maybe on this one, we just connect with you and figure out how we can support you to get this moving and going, and make it, kind of brand it, I guess, as part of our Community Development Week.
Yeah, of course.
Celebration. Okay.
Okay.
Great. Okay. So number 2 is celebration. I need to move you guys back over here. So this is, and I'm going to be honest with you, I don't even know anymore who our city council liaison is. And so this would be something that we would probably need to discuss with that person, whoever it is. But the idea would be, so there is a city council meeting on that Monday, April 1st, which would be the first day of Community Development Week. That is also Easter Monday. And also, I mean, we just know that city council meetings can get kind of full, the agendas. And so we were thinking there's also the working session would be happening that Thursday from 1 to 5. And so, this would be something definitely to clear with the city council liaison for this committee. But, would it be possible for us to sort of get on that agenda from 4 to 5 at the tail end of their already scheduled working session to have a celebration? And the idea would be, have some tables set up, allow for current recipients of the funding to set up a table, showcase what they've done, get in front of city council type of a thing, mostly like an open house style event. Again, invitation only, but then have probably a few remarks by Mayor Williams. Maybe this would be where he reads the proclamation or something like that. I do believe, and maybe Leah or somebody else can remember, I want to say last year there was, for some reason, the proclamation wasn't read at a full city council meeting. It was read like at one of the working sessions. There was some reason for that. And so, it could be like, let's just sort of stick with that format. And so again, this would be Thursday, April 4th at 4 p.m. It's all 4s. If you can't remember that, I don't know how else I can help you guys, because it is literally all 4s, 4-4 at 4. And so what we would request from y'all would be to show up there, and, represent the committee. And then we would need some support with the logistics, an in-person event. This is something where our committee can definitely step up to help with the setup, help with the tear down, things with that, to take some burden off of the community development department. I don't know why it didn't advance. There we go. And then the request from the community development department would be, to confirm with that liaison that we can get on the agenda, or maybe it's even the committee leadership that would reach out to the liaison. I'm not sure. Confirm who we would want to invite as like the success stories to set up a table to showcase something. And confirm that a proclamation will be written. I don't know how that happened last year. If it was just like Mr. Johnson asked, my guess is it's something that is very administrative. It's not like You know, like they probably copy paste a lot from the previous years. Let's be honest. So yeah, just kind of confirming that like some of the big, the big things that need to be in place before we were to schedule something like this, and then our committee and anyone else from the larger committee that wants to help with some of the logistics and planning of this. And, we were thinking, we assume that we have a little bit of a budget because there was one last year that we could purchase some food, like kind of purchase a few things to make it feel special for folks.
Yeah, as far as I know, Amy, we do have that budget. And then Maggie was probably going to say this, but I'll briefly say it. As far as I know, right now, we don't have a liaison yet.
Okay.
The mayor is planning, we'll see if it happens, if his schedule changes, on attending our meeting next month.
Okay.
Nice to kind of preempt this event. May I make one suggestion as to the timing? Could we maybe start it at like 5:30, just to like let people get there? I think is a little bit what I'm concerned about, if it's starting like right at 5. Granted, I know that you need to keep the city council there, so I understand.
And I think that was that they're already going to be there. And again, also being considerate of community development department and other like city staff that probably don't want to spend their Thursday evening. And so, yeah, I mean, city council's in working session from 1 to 5. And so the idea was like, let's take that last hour if they'll allow us.
So, Amy, what I was just going to add, I can do some of that logistical confirmation with the city clerk's office.
Okay.
To be transparent, I'm not sure if something isn't on the city council meeting agenda for the actual meeting proper that happens on Monday nights, what that process looks like.
Okay.
To just get something on a work session. But I can work through all that, and there are other folks who will know those answers. So I can make those coordinations, and I can start sending out those emails tomorrow to try and get a feel, how those things can be administered.
And I think like in our subcommittee discussion, it sort of felt like it would be a bit easier to get on that working session agenda than the full council meeting.
Mhm.
And it's kind of, like, since it is a little open house style, it's not like 30 minutes of remarks and stuff like that. It kind of felt nice. Like it's at the end of the meeting and people can leave early if they need to, what have you. But, like if what makes more sense, or if what the city council is thinking is going to happen and anticipating is that something does take place at that council meeting on the 1st. We can pivot for that for sure. And it would just be a different type of event, which is not the end of the world.
Yeah, no, like I said, I make the ask.
Okay, did Maggie freeze for other people, or is this just me?
I didn't know, and so that's why I shut everything down. I was like, is that me doing this or is that her doing this? Yeah, it's her doing it.
Work that has to happen in order to get something on a city council meeting agenda. But I can start, like I said, making those asks, and then I'll follow up with the subcommittee and also include the executive leaders on those emails with what I'm able to.
Great. Thanks so much, Maggie.
Yeah, thank you as always, Maggie. And thank you all in the subcommittee for this extra work. We so appreciate it. I know folks are starting to head off. A couple quick things, quick announcement. Alexa Hartenstein, who's been a CAC member for about a year, unfortunately, due to some other stuff going on, she can no longer make this time. So she has resigned from the CAC. So thank you to Alexa for her service. And hopefully we, when things get a little bit different, maybe with her schedule, she can rejoin us and reapply. And then we do, by the skin of our teeth, still have quorum. I know that we already had it. Seth is here. He informed me last time, but just so folks are aware as well, there is an amendment we'd like to make to our bylaws, which we have to do in a meeting. So Maggie, if thanks, Seth. Maggie, if you want to briefly bring that up and explain, kind of hit the two things that we're really trying to change.
Yeah, of course. So I had approached Leah and the executive leaders with a amendment to the bylaws. And the first reasoning is for stipends. So this committee is eligible to receive a monthly stipend, and the stipend supports expenses related to serving on the committee, things like transportation, meals, childcare, parking costs, all of those sorts of costs that may be incurred as a result of serving. So city appointed committee members are currently eligible for the stipend. However, county appointed members are not currently eligible for the stipend because of Section 4 of the bylaws that state committee members will serve without compensation. It's very nuanced, but the way that Durham County, they look at bylaws, and Durham City Council, they made the determination just based on the committees that are administered. So that amendment, if folks are agreeable, we would change the language, and there's some sample language provided just to state that that committee members can serve with compensation if eligible by the city clerk's office for both Durham County and City of Durham. And then some of the other updates are purely administrative. So to change language like community development, we underwent a name change, I think back in, 2020, 2021, it predated me. But our name in that in the bylaws is not accurate. So to update that, and then also to omit a couple sections that reference functions of HSAC. So the HSAC committee deals a lot with continuum of care funding. They're looking at funding that I discussed. And in our bylaws is some reference to functions that they maintain. So it would be to omit that language. And so what would have to happen is folks would need to be agreeable to those changes. And then once they are, if voted upon that those changes can be made, then I'll be sending out some information about stipend eligibility, which stipends in and of themselves are administered by the clerk's offices respectively. But I'd give that detail.
Thank you, Maggie. And we wanted, primarily, I don't think anyone thinks that this is wild, other than those administrative changes. The around stipends is really about equity among the group. If you're county appointed, the processes are just different, and we'd like to make them the same, so that folks who are interested and eligible can apply with either the county or the city. So Maggie, do I just need a motion on we're okay to make these changes? Okay, I didn't know if there needed to be anything else happen. Yeah, I'll take a motion on amending our bylaws to resolve these three issues.
I move to make an amendment to the bylaws to address those.
Thank you, Rashaki. Is there a second?
Seconded, Seth.
Thanks, Seth. All right. Thank you, Maggie. We appreciate it. Thanks for keeping us updated. Oh yeah, Anne.
We have to vote.
Oh yeah. Sorry, all in favor. Thank you, Anne. Y'all, it's 7:45. We've been on here for so long. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Perfect. Motion carries. I even brushed up before this, y'all, and it still happened.
You did good, Leah.
I was doing so good so far, right? Wonderful. Well, thank you all. This has been a really long meeting. We don't currently have anyone who is attending from the public, so we won't do that section. I already announced about Alexa. Are there any other announcements from the group or from community development? All right. We will be having, again, our meeting next month. Hopefully the mayor will be able to join us. We'll have a backup plan just in case. But are there any other questions, comments from the group? Feeling good? Wonderful. Thanks y'all for your attendance, for your effort. Looking forward to meeting next month. Looking forward to Community Development Week. So excited about that. And I will adjourn this meeting. Wonderful. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. See you all next
Good night.
month.
See you all next month. Bye.
Bye.